และตอนนี้ได้เวลาที่เหมาะสมแล้วนะคะเดี๋ยวมิมจะขอเรียนเชิญคุณเฮเลนานะคะนำเสนอในส่วนของเรื่องหนังสือที่สำคัญเล่มนี้นะคะที่เราพัฒนาและผลิตขึ้นมานะคะและจะทำให้เรามีความเข้าใจมากขึ้นนะคะคือ AFD Book of Solutions ประสบการณ์ในการเงินเพื่อความหลากหลายทางชีวภาพทั้งในระดับภูมิภาคเอเชียและในระดับโลกขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับคุณเฮเลนาด้วยค่ะ
Yeah. Hello to everyone. I hope this time it's working fine. I'm glad to be with you this afternoon, and we'll spend a short 15 minutes together to discover AFD principles for nature and biodiversity. So the first part of my presentation will be a short presentation of principles for tracking biodiversity and nature positive finance. As you know, among the recent years, there have been lots of changes in the biodiversity frameworks, from the Kunming-Montreal Protocol signed in 2022 during the Conference of Party 15 to putting this into practice. And that's to say that by 2024, the countries will have to present their national strategies and action plans as well as national targets. There will be a phase of global analysis of these documents, and then the submission of the national reports, and then the first global assessment by 2026, and then a second round, which will bring you to 2029 with the second round of submission of national reports, as well as a second global assessment by 2030. So this is very ambitious, and globally, we're going towards a stronger sustainability framework for the preservation of nature. And that's why AFD has been developing a strong strategic and financial commitment to protect biodiversity. As you may already know, the group's financial contribution towards biodiversity is to reach €1 billion by 2025. Also, there is a goal that is to ensure that 30% of its climate finance is nature positive. And then also to widen the scope of biodiversity across all sectors of intervention. And the fourth point, maybe is the most important, is that biodiversity is now fully integrated alongside climate into accountability frameworks in terms of impacts, co-benefits, and also investment strategies. And so this is why AFD has been putting down a couple of founding principles to combine nature and finance, building on the best standards for biodiversity finance. And point two, systematically assessing the alignment of investments with the future GBF, and also calculating nature and finance according to global biodiversity net gains, which I will present just afterwards. This is making a deep commitment to the protection of the planet, and it's also a systematic criteria for investment decision-making. And last, nature accountability will be integrated in group's SDGs reporting. So for net gains, this chart here shows you the principle. The net gain is defined by the fact that the project generates a net gain when biodiversity state is better with the project than without the project. You can see on the left a sentence saying a little bit more about that. A project generates a net gain when nature impacts or biodiversity co-benefits, and if nature itself or the governance of biodiversity are improved as a result of project implementation. So the chart on the right side shows you the baseline, which is what would happen without the project, and the way that AFD is able to define if the project has been enhancing biodiversity and ecosystemic services or not. So that's so much for AFD framework so far, and you can find extra documents after this presentation. And so I will now go to the introduction of the Book of Good Practices, which has been designed for AFD. This book is a first version of a document, and obviously it will be followed by others with many more examples. But here today I will highlight the main points of this content. this book is intended to the private sector in order to let people know more about the challenges and also how to take action. So this book aims at giving more understanding of the impact of biodiversity on your business and how to take advantage of it. Secondly, give you examples of businesses who are integrated biodiversity considerations, and then providing tools that you can use to integrate biodiversity and the business. So probably this morning you already had quite a summary of what is at stake with biodiversity, but here you see a few snapshots of biodiversity definitions as well as challenges. As you all know, biodiversity is not only the biodiversity of species, but also the biodiversity of and within ecosystems as defined by the CBD. As you probably know as well, biodiversity has an economic value which is assessed as 2 times at least the world's GDP, and that there is a high dependency of GDP to biodiversity status. And on the right side, you see a few quotes of what have been identified as big challenges also for the financial sector. For instance, on the top right corner, that 42% of the value of securities held by French financial institutions were issued by companies who are directly dependent to ecosystemic services. So obviously there is a need for measurements both of impacts but of dependencies. And there is a need for greening the financial system. Here on this screen, you can see a few charts showing the impacts of economic activities on biodiversities, the risks related to nature, and also the opportunities. So what I wanted to highlight is usually we tend to look at negative impacts of businesses on biodiversity, which is obviously a big challenge, and it comes from any production sector, as you can see on the pie chart. That's about resource extraction and cultivation, manufacturing, services, and consumption all have a high level of pressure on biodiversity. But what I would like to comment more today is the type of risks related to nature. And there are 3 main categories of risks for businesses. The first is physical risks, which is that a loss of habitat for species or ecosystemic damage does impact operations. There are transition risks, which is a corporate strategy that is not aligned with changing regulatory environment and policies. And there are systemic risks, which is when there is a global breakdown of a local ecosystem, then the production is severely damaged. So that's for the risks and dependencies. And on the right side, you can see also that taking care of biodiversity can also bring opportunities for businesses. So the blue dots here show you how to mitigate risks by preventing supply chain disruptions, avoiding regulatory costs, and maintaining the license to operate. And the right side shows you how by taking better care of biodiversity or nature, you can expand to new markets, enhance the value proposition, and also quite often reduce operating and funding costs. So now it will bring me to examples of businesses who have integrated biodiversity issues into their business models or their operations. First example is Protec. Protec is a private company based in Mexico, a listed company producing FSC wood, teak, and eucalyptus. And they have been granted a loan of 26 million euros to help financing an extra 10,000 hectares of forestry. And that was a loan from Proparco and AFD, and that will support the expansion of certified forests, as well as enhancing degraded areas. And obviously, as you may know, reducing GHG emissions because of carbon sequestration. My second example is in the finance arena. CAF is a South American development bank, and they have received a 200 million credit line And this is a very nice initiative promoting loans that will help also this financial player, to grant credit to companies in order to improve biodiversity in South American contexts, to bring them to low carbon models and biodiversity friendly economy. Then I will talk about this Kilik private company. So this is a Turkish company operating in the fish area, and they got an 80 million euros loan from Propaco and FMO to expand sustainable aquaculture. And obviously that's a very high challenge for fisheries. Then these examples of the Bank of Qingdao, Propaco participated in a 550 million syndicated loan for this bank. And this bank will finance blue finance projects in China. And that's very innovative, as you know, because biodiversity is not only on land, forestry, agriculture issues, but it's also about ocean-friendly projects and also cleaning water resources. So as you can see on the bottom, the focus of the projects are reducing the volume of marine litter and untreated wastewater, as well as promoting responsible fishing. Then we go to the example of Mirova LDN, Land Degradation Neutrality Fund. This large fund has been operating in many countries. As you can see, they have given rise to 10 investments in 12 developing countries, and their focus is mainly forestry, agroforestry program in the Philippines, and sustainable forestry in Brazil. So they are combining finance tools with all the issues about regenerative forestry in the world. Then I'm going to circulate capital example. So this Singapore-based firm, as you may know, is now financing a lot of activities to green the economy, such as climate technology, plastic recycling, and circular economy. From what I understood, Circulate Capital also granted a loan to a Thai player, Yunnan J+, and you will know a lot more about it during the subsequent session. So what is really nice here is the Circulate Capital Ocean Fund is investing in companies across plastic recycling and waste management value chains. And now what about the tools that you may want to use to integrate biodiversity and your business? So there are many frameworks, which are for some of them quite recent, that can be used by different sectors to assess and also reduce their impact and their dependencies on biodiversity. So I will give you a few highlights about 4 of them that you can see here on screen. The first is TNFD, the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures. The second is Anchor tool. The third is Science-Based Targets Network initiative. And the last would be Triple Capital Accounting. So TNFD is a global initiative, and it helps many organizations. As you can see, more than 200 organizations already joined it, to assess as well their impacts, dependencies, and risks, and also put in place impact management, metrics, and targets. They also developed 8 guidelines for specific sectors, for instance, food and agriculture, forestry, chemicals, aquaculture. It is a voluntary framework, meaning that you can adapt it to the maturity of your business, and you can also choose which metrics and how many you want to disclose. And last, they also created a community of good practices at no cost, which you may want to join if you want to share these new practices on biodiversity accounting. The second initiative that I'm showing you here is Anchor, which is a tool that is free, which is available online, and that helps organizations to explore their exposure to nature-related risks, and also taking the first steps to understand their dependencies and impacts. You can see a small example in the bottom right corner, which is Robeco, who use this tool to assess their exposure by sector to biodiversity challenges and also their impacts. So as a first assessment for financial player, this tool is very useful, and AFD is recommended that you may want to use it to go through this first assessment. And it is also a nice first step before going into a deeper TNFD process of disclosure. And then I'm going to SBTN. Science-Based Targets Networks is a global initiative which is made of business associations, NGOs, and consultancies. And they have been working at providing help to design the suitable targets by sector for each player according to what we know at the scientific level, which is what is the state of biodiversity that is desirable and that should be preserved. So right now they are ongoing with a big pilot with many companies. They want to be aligned with the GBF, with Paris Agreement and UN SDGs. And they are under the process that the scientific committee is validating their targets for biodiversity. And then I will finish with triple capital accounting. So triple accounting methodologies are designed to better reflect corporate activities' impacts, but also dependencies on natural capital. So as you may know, accounting is usually more focused about financial capital, but there are other types of capital, such as environmental and social capital, which usually are not fully taken into account at the accounting frameworks levels. So there has been in the last 20 years the development of many TCM methods. I will cite two of them here. The LIFTS model, which is an accounting framework that is compatible with the donut economy framework, with social foundation and planetary boundaries. And the second one is CARE, which is comprehensive accounting in respect of ecology, which aims also at providing an accounting framework to maintain sustainable levels of natural capital. So as you can see, some pilots with these tools have been performed on some SMEs in Europe, also including agricultural companies, and that sounds quite promising. Also, this is a development that's performed with institutions. And as a word for conclusion, I would say thank you very much for your attention, and also recommend that you join AFD teams in Bangkok if you wish to know more about all these examples and tools. Thank you very much.